Hi, welcome back to another video from the Healthy Back Program. I'm Andrea. I wanted to go over the concept about change and that process, especially as the new year is coming in for us. We have big ideas and big plans and big hopes and big dreams for the coming year, especially after everything we've been through with the pandemic, and now we're getting kind of into that phase of let's just see what life's going to look like. And most of us are starting to realize that the pandemic and quarantine and all that really took its toll on us, took its toll on our health, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And so with this new year coming up, I want to talk with you guys about this change management process and how important this process is. And really, when we're talking about change, we're talking about awareness, and it's becoming aware of the need to change. And that's always the first step, right? Even in AA, admitting that you have a problem, that means becoming aware and admitting that there's an issue that needs to change. It's the same thing with health and health-related concepts, is becoming aware that things need to change and that you have some part to play in getting that change started and keeping it going and staying motivated for it. The hard part with health, especially when it comes to issues related to back health, is that we have to start looking at how we live. We have to start looking at our everyday routine and what that really looks like. Because once we have a concept of what our routines look like, then we can start looking at that routine and evaluate if there's any patterns that become really obvious, if there's some trends that you notice that maybe need to be looked at, or just some additional areas of focus and areas of stress, areas of that may come to mind. And becoming aware of what your routines look like when it comes to health, when it comes to back health, is really very important. And I say this because when we're talking about those patterns, those things in our lives that often drive some of our pain, drive or increase some of our pain, we have to look at what our lives are adding to our back pain, to our back pathology. And in doing so, it is about how you choose to live consciously every moment in accordance to your health. And that sounds very kind of woo-woo-y, but stay with me. If you become conscious of how you're living your day-to-day life, how you're going from getting out of bed in the morning, getting to the coffee maker, getting to the couch for breakfast or the breakfast table for breakfast, getting to the shower, getting to work, getting to all of those aspects of your life. If you start breaking that down and looking at what your routine looks like, you're going to suddenly become very aware of some interesting patterns and some interesting behaviors that you have. And it's these areas, especially when we're talking about back health, that I spend a lot of time talking with my clients about. And it's about looking at, if you decided you wanted to stretch, you need to start looking at your life and where you can put stretching into place. So what that means is you need to look at your routine. Okay, well, I get up at this time and I have to be at work at this time, so I have this many minutes between the time I get up and the time I have to leave home for work that I could potentially put some stretching into it. Let's see what that time frame looks like. And then you can look at your work schedule. Well, I have breaks here, here, and here. I could do some stretching there. Or you could look at I have to run some errands. How can I time optimize in order to get some healthy routines in order to continue to live my life and function well in my life? So functioning well is part of that live long well, because if you're able to function in your life, if you're able to function well in your life, then that means that your quality of life has a better chance of being better, right? If you're functioning well, that means that you're meeting all your obligations, you're able to do the things you need to do, you're able to engage in your life, in your hobby, in your family, in your friends. You're able to have that life and live it well, and live as well as you can for as long as you can. Because that's really what the whole concept of aging is about, right? It's about living long, well, or as well as you can, and with as much quality of life as possible. And so when we're talking about back health and we're talking about change and making those processes different, making our life different, we have to look at how we actually live it. And so when I talk with clients about this process, I am talking with them about actually sitting down and doing what I call a time inventory. And that means document your life for a week, and moment to moment in 15-minute increments. 15-minute increments. And yes, it's going to take you some time to sit down with a 24-hour calendar, and they're available online. They're available if you're part of the Healthy Back program. They're available in the portal where I've put some there for you to download. But really, looking at your life in 15-minute increments allows you to start looking at, holy cow, I didn't realize that I sit and watch TV that much every day, or every day after work. Or holy cow, I didn't realize that I was, totally neglecting this aspect of my life when I have all this time that I wasn't aware of. And that's battling that time concept is so important in the change management process, because as a provider, the number one thing that people tell me is, I would love to do all those things you want me to do for my health if I could just find the time. And so what I'm telling you is if you are aware that you need to make change for better health, for better back health, for better functioning in life, for less pain and more quality of life, then you need to figure out how to put those processes, those behaviors, those patterns into your life and change the old ones that you have, because that's really what we're talking about, is making a lifestyle shift, looking at your patterns, looking at how you live your life moment to moment in those patterns, and changing the patterns that don't work for you, changing the patterns that are, a negative against the value of your health. And so if you choose to sit and watch TV instead of actually getting up and stretching, then that may be a pattern that if you start looking at your life moment to moment over even, like I said, a week's time, you can really see that. And then you can start looking at, I have a lot of wasted time, or a lot of extra time that I fool around, I waste, I do whatever. When indeed, this is time that I could be using for me. This is time that I could be using to put myself first, to put my health first, so that I can be fully engaged in my life, to be helping my family and my friends, to be fully engaged in my job, to be fully engaged as a wife, as a spouse, as a mom, whatever roles that we have in our life, we have to be able to be fully engaged in that stuff. And if our health is lacking, that means that we don't have a full cup to draw from in order to give and care for our loved ones and to put 100% into our life. And so that change process is about looking at what your habits are, starting to become consciously aware of those habits, because these habits that we're looking at changing are old habits. They're ingrained habits. You've been practicing these habits for years and haven't even been aware of it. It's silly things, little things that add up. But if you become aware of some of those habits that you've taken, then you can start making change and start practicing those new habits so that you're getting the benefits out of it. And so it's about making the unconscious habits that are not helpful, that are decreasing from the value of our health, and putting some interrupted breaks into our routines, having a plan of action so that when we break that routine, we can go, oh, we're doing this instead. We're doing choice B instead, and we can practice that and then move on in our life. But it's those little moments of being able to break those bad patterns, break those habits that we have, reaching for the cookies in the cupboard when we know we shouldn't be, having a way to break that pattern so that what you're reaching for is something else. If you have to feed yourself because of an emotional stress, then we need to replace what you're grabbing for in a healthy manner, and then we start working on why you're eating for stress. But it's those change patterns, it's those little moments when we have that decision to make, that fork in the road that says we can do the old way or we can do the new way. And the old way keeps us back, holds us back, prevents us from getting healthier, prevents us from getting pain relief, prevents us from being able to fully engage in our life, to choosing the new way, which is to practice this new way of doing it and see what the results are, and keep practicing and keep refining and keep seeing what works and what doesn't work until that new pattern, that new habit becomes as unconscious as the old one was that we worked to undo. And so this change process really starts with becoming consciously aware of needing to change, becoming aware of why we need to change that, becoming aware of how we're going to change that, and then planning to put that into our lives. And part of putting that into our lives is time inventories. Look at fully become aware of your patterns around what it is that you're trying to change, around what it is that you're needing to support and improve on. Look at the patterns that you have around that. Look at the emotions and the senses, the body senses that you have, the monkey mind, blah, blah, blahs that you have around that thing that you want to change. And then you have to start breaking those patterns that we attach to that behavior, that we attach to that particular thing, whether it's stress, whether it's not moving when we know we should, when we're choosing to not confront an issue with your spouse or your best friend when you know there needs to be to manage that stress. All of those little decisions where you kind of get caught with the two choices and there's one right and one wrong way when it comes to your health. And that is about being able to figure out how to put those new patterns into place so that you no longer have the excuse that you don't have time. Not having time is an excuse that we tell ourselves to justify being lazy and, justify being tired, justify our reasons for not doing the right decision, the right action when we came to that fork in the road regarding a healthy behavior. And so that change process is about looking at all of those pieces around the change, your resistance to change, your resistance to, this is the way I've always done it. It becomes that habitual thing. We have to start undoing that whole ball of wax and then figure out how to put the new stuff into play. And so as the new year rolls around, I encourage you guys, do a time inventory. Download a 15-minute increment 24-hour calendar from online, and a typical week. We all have a typical routine. whether we're stay at home or we're not, there's still a routine that happens in our lives. And so start looking at that. Start looking at, if you're wanting less pain, you're wanting better movement, you're wanting to be able to be more active in your life, then you have to start putting in those pieces to start making that happen. And if you have been on a couch or in a chair for a long period of time because of pain and depression and quarantine and whatever other reasons are out there, and you're wanting to start movement, then you have to figure out how you're going to put that into your life so that you don't have the excuses anymore. All right, you guys, I hope this has been helpful. I will see you in our next video.